Hey guys, tonight we travel back way back. The stars overhead are bright. The air is cool, and you're squatting behind a bush, clutching your stomach and questioning your life choices. Welcome to the unflushed, unfiltered world of prehistoric potty problems. You've got no toilet, no privacy, and definitely no wet wipes. Just dirt, rocks, and a vague sense of impending doom. You probably won't survive this. But hey, at least there's a nice view. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you're still awake. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I'd love to know. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge barefoot through tall grass, the kind that sticks to your legs and whispers secrets in the wind. There's a chill in the air and a gnawing in your gut, not from fear, but from that mammoth meat stew that's clearly not sitting right. Welcome to life before plumbing, before pipes, before even the idea of toilets. Back in the Paleolithic days, you did your business wherever you could. That's not a euphemism. You literally found a spot, squatted, and hoped no saber-toothed tigers were nearby. Archaeologists suggest that early humans may have had certain areas. They favored spots that were downwind, downhill, or just far enough from the sleeping circle to keep things civil. These weren't toilets, though, more like communal dirt patches with strong, do not step here energy. Historians still argue whether these areas were deliberately designated or just a result of pattern forming by creatures who, like us, preferred not to smell each other all day. The earliest toilet structures, if you can call them that, were likely shallow pits, little scoops in the ground where waste could be buried. You dig one yourself with a broken antler or your bare hands, depending on how desperate things are. This method, though crude, had its perks. It kept waste somewhat contained and, once covered, reduced the scent buffet that predators might find enticing. Fast forward a few millennia to around 1000 BCE in what's now Scotland, and you stumble into Skara Brae, a Neolithic village with surprise, primitive stone drains. It's windy. The stone houses are cramped, and everyone smells faintly of fish and sweat. But what's this? A little channel carved in the floor. That's right. These early folks had the idea to move waste away from the living area using basic drainage. It wasn't glamorous, and it definitely wasn't flushable, but it was a start. You wander through the compact stone dwellings, marveling at the intentionality. There's a sense of, we're going to live here for a while, so let's not marinate in our own mess. One theory suggests they used animal skins or moss as early toilet paper. Not the softest experience, but better than leaves with attitude. A fun fringe tidbit. In some parts of the world, like ancient China, flat bamboo spatulas were used for wiping. Yes, you heard that right. you'd scrape, not dab. Good luck falling asleep now. Despite these crude beginnings, there's no denying that early humans were already thinking about waste. Not just how to produce it, but how to get rid of it responsibly. This wasn't just for comfort. There's a survivalist logic here. Too much waste around the camp meant illness, bugs, predators, and really awkward breakfast conversations. And though you might imagine these early folk as uncouth cave dwellers, they probably had more rules about where and when to go than you'd expect. It's not hard to imagine. A grumpy elder waving a stick and pointing toward the bushes when someone strayed too close to the fire pit. As you try to sleep on a bed of grass near the cave's edge, the sounds of the night become your lullaby. Crickets chirp, wolves howl in the distance, and your stomach lets out another gurgle. It's hard to imagine a world where no one flushes, where everyone's secrets are quite literally buried just outside the door. But this was life, unfiltered, unglamorous, and sometimes unburied. Here's a weird little brain itch to keep you up. Some researchers believe that early humans may have recognized the value of waste as fertilizer. There's a theory that, over time, the smelliest spots became the most fertile, and early proto-farmers may have noticed a connection. Of course, others insist that this is romanticized hindsight, and that our ancestors were mostly trying not to step in anything before breakfast. Historians still argue whether early waste management was intentional agriculture or just a happy accident of poor planning. So, you shift on your makeshift grass mat, thinking about how long it's taken humans to solve a problem that has never, not once in all of history, gone away. The prehistoric world may have been free of email and traffic, but it was also full of flies and unfortunate surprises in the tall grass. And yet, there's something calming about it all. A world without porcelain, without plumbing, without pink-scented spray, just you, the stars, and the low hum of a world still figuring things out. One squat at a time, you wake up stiff and slightly damp from the morning dew, nestled in your grass mat near a fire that's long since gone cold. It's time to move forward. Thousands of years. Forward to a world where the air is hot, the sand is unforgiving, and someone somewhere is probably trying to sell you something made of gold. Welcome to ancient Egypt. Here, the Nile flows serenely, looping its eternal path like the world's oldest plumbing system. You walk through a bustling city, stepping over mud bricks and past open market stalls filled with fish, bread, and the unmistakable scent of livestock and people. Because, despite their majestic temples and mathematical know-how, the Egyptians still had to deal with the same old problem: where to go when nature called. Surprisingly, they weren't half bad at it. Some wealthier households, think priests, scribes, or anyone close enough to the pharaoh to borrow his eyeliner, had something resembling a toilet. Picture a limestone or wooden stool with a hole in the top and a ceramic jar underneath. You sit, you do your thing. Someone empties it later. Probably not a job that won any workplace awards, but let's not pretend this was widespread. Most folks used communal pits or simply went outside, relying on sand and sun to handle what modern society calls waste. And yet, this wasn't total chaos. The Egyptians were big fans of order. After all, they worshipped Ma'at, the goddess of balance and cleanliness. Bathing was a ritual, and so, in its way, was waste. The real marvel, though, was their understanding of water movement. In some wealthier complexes, you'll find rudimentary drainage systems, sloped floors, leading to clay pipes that carried gray water, and occasionally other less charming things out of the home. These were not modern toilets, not even close, but they were engineered with purpose. It's the kind of clever system you'd expect from a civilization that buried boats in the desert, just in case the pharaoh needed a ride in the afterlife. One curious fringe detail: some tombs include depictions of latrines, which suggests that even in death, a proper place to go was considered essential. That's right. You spend your entire mortal life building pyramids, and your reward is an eternal rest next to a symbolic commode. Comforting, maybe, and yet, even in a society obsessed with cleanliness and cosmic order, things got messy. Human waste, along with animal refuse, often collected in open ditches. The streets of Thebes weren't exactly scented with papyrus blossoms. In fact, there are records of sanitation workers. Yes, real employed poop scoopers, whose job it was to clean up public areas. Talk about unsung heroes. You walk into an ancient bathhouse, steamy, echoing with jade voices and dripping water. Here, you watch a man finish washing and head to a nearby corner where a ceramic seat waits. There's a gentle, ritualistic feel to it all. In some homes, sand was sprinkled over waste to control the smell, not unlike how your cat handles business. Historians still argue whether this was widespread sanitation or just the habits of the elite, romanticized later by archaeologists who were understandably excited to find anything remotely latrine adjacent. A little boy runs past you, holding a clay jar shaped suspiciously like a baboon. Turns out, this isn't just art. It's a potty. Children's chamber pots often came in decorative shapes. Some scholars believe it helped make the process less scary. Others suspect it was just another way to show off. Oh, your child uses a plain pot. Ours has a baboon that sings. As you wander farther, the heat grows heavier, and you can't help but admire the sheer will it took to build this world. Every stone placed with purpose, every statue carved with symbolism. And yet, when it came to toilets, even the mighty pharaoh probably had to endure the occasional awkward moment. There's a quiet comfort in realizing that no matter how divine they believed themselves to be, the Egyptians still had to go. Maybe it was in a limestone seat, maybe just outside the palace wall, but go. They did, like everyone else, forever. The Nile continues its calm journey, as the sun dips lower, casting golden reflections on the water. You rest beside it, imagining the hum of conversation, the squish of mud between sandaled feet, and the low murmur of ancient people living everyday lives, eating, laughing, and occasionally awkwardly excusing themselves to the corner of the courtyard. And so, the journey of the toilet inches forward, not yet private, not yet pristine, but undeniably present. You're jolted awake by the loud chatter of a crowd and the strong, unmistakable smell of olive oil, garlic, and something far less appealing, wafting through the air. Welcome to ancient Rome, where public toilets are more social than a modern cafe, and privacy is a concept yet to be invented. You stroll down a paved street in your sandals, dodging carts, merchants, and the occasional runaway goat. The sun gleams off marble columns as you reach a grand building that doesn't look like a toilet, but surprise. It is the Forica, Rome's communal bathroom. You step inside and are greeted not by stalls, but by a long stone bench with keyhole-shaped holes, evenly spaced along its top. No dividers, no doors, just a row of strangers doing what humans have always done, shoulder to shoulder. You sit with hesitation and maybe a slight flinch, and you realize this was the norm. Romans treated the toilet like a public lounge. Conversations flourished. Political debates erupted. Gossip flowed as freely as well, you get the idea. The toilets even had running water underneath an actual drainage system that carried waste away, and in front of the bench, a shallow trough filled with flowing water where people cleaned a shared sponge on a stick, or tersorium. You pause. Shared, sponge, stick. And yes, it was communal. No, they didn't change it often. Yes, this was very normal. You can't unsee that now. Historians still argue whether people brought their own sponges or whether these were just conveniently provided, like questionable hotel towels. Either way, it gives sharing, is caring, a whole new level of uncomfortable. The Romans were, in many ways, ahead of their time. Their sewage systems, especially in places like Ostia and Pompeii, were marvels of early engineering. The Cloaca Maxima, one of the world's first large-scale sewage systems, still exists. Imagine that. A toilet-related infrastructure that's outlived empires, languages, and several fast food trends. But even Rome had its quirks. While the elite might enjoy private latrines in their villas, most citizens used the public forica, and they weren't free. You'd pay a small fee. Hence the phrase, money doesn't stink, or pecunia non olet, attributed to Emperor Vespasian. He even taxed urine collected from public toilets, which tanners then used to soften leather. Yes, tanners. Yes, urine. Moving on. You wander into a bathhouse, your feet echoing on the tile, steam rising from warm pools. Here, tanners too, are toilets often built right into the bath complex. After sweating out your stress, you'd stroll over and take care of other business. Hygiene wasn't quite what we'd call hygienic today, but it was systematic. Water flowed constantly through the latrines to carry waste away, sometimes into sewers that led to the Tiber River. Good for cleanliness, maybe not for the fish. There's a certain comfort in the routine of it all. Roman citizens may not have had privacy, but they had predictability. Toilet time was regular, regulated, and even somewhat revered. There's evidence of blessings and inscriptions carved into latrine walls, some serious, others less so. Picture graffiti that reads more like Marcus was here and ate too many figs. One quirky fringe tidbit. Archaeologists found a bronze toilet spoon, delicately made, likely used for applying ointments, or we'll let your imagination rest. The point is, Rome didn't just build toilets. They ritualized them. You pass by a latrine near a military camp, and even here, efficiency reigns. Soldiers, like civilians, used open-row toilets. Modesty wasn't part of the design. Instead, speed and function were key. Nature called, and Rome answered with stona, water, and a side of sponge. It's not all glamorous. Of course, the toilets could overflow. The sewers could back up. Some believed demons lived in the drains, and for good reason. With methane gas buildup and no ventilation, ancient toilets could literally explode. That's not a euphemism. It was rare, but not unheard of. So now, as you stroll through a Roman alley under the golden orange sunset, you realize something profound. While the empire was building roads, theaters, and aqueducts, they were also shaping the future of something far less celebrated: plumbing. They didn't perfect it, but they proved a vital point. Sanitation matters, even if it means sitting cheek to cheek with strangers and borrowing the community sponge. You find a quiet corner near a crumbling column. Sit down and imagine the murmur of voices in the forica, the trickle of water in the trough, and the faint scratch of graffiti being carved into marble walls. The empire may have fallen, but the desire for a decent place to go, eternal. You wake with a start to the sound of distant bells and the clatter of wooden wheels over cobblestones. The scent in the air is a muddled cocktail of roasted meat, damp wool, open sewage, and hope. Welcome to medieval Europe, a place where everything feels just slightly uphill, metaphorically and literally, especially when you're dragging a full chamber pot up a staircase. This is a world caught between forgetting what Rome built and trying to reinvent it, with wildly mixed results. Castles rise over muddy villages. Monks chant in echoing stone cloisters. And almost nobody has figured out what to do with poop. You wander into a timber-framed inn. It's loud, smoky, and packed with bodies. Somewhere, a lute is being played badly. You excuse yourself and head up a narrow staircase, ducking under a beam. At the end of a hallway is what looks like a small closet with a wooden bench. You open the door. There's a hole in the bench, and below it, nothing, just a dark, yawning drop. You've discovered the garderobe, a toilet that essentially emptied straight down the side of the building. That's right, medieval architecture had flair, but not plumbing. in castles. Garderobes often jutted out from upper walls, so waste would tumble into a moat or cesspit below. Some even had chutes designed to carry it farther from the foundation, though designed might be a generous term. You lean over the edge and instantly regret it. Fringe fact: people sometimes stored their clothes in garderobes. Why? Because it was believed the strong stench would keep moths away. Yep, hanging your Sunday best above a poop shaft was considered savvy pest control. Practical, perhaps romantic, not even slightly. And the streets. Well, this is where things get creatively awful. Without indoor plumbing for most people, chamber pots were common, and so was tossing their contents out the window. Gardy. They'd shout, a warped version of the French garde l'eau. Watch out for the water. You don't get much warning. If you hear it, duck fast. You wander the narrow alleyways of a town like York or Paris, navigating sludge-filled gutters down the center of the street. Waste from humans and animals alike runs freely. It's an olfactory onslaught, and yet life bustles. Merchants bark out prices. Children play in doorways, and everyone simply tolerates it. Historians still argue whether medieval sanitation was as horrific as often portrayed. Some say towns had surprisingly strict rules about where and when waste could be dumped. Others argue that enforcement was sporadic, and most laws were ignored after one pint too many. In wealthier homes, particularly noble estates or monasteries, latrine systems could be more advanced. Monks at places like Rievaulx Abbey had rows of stone seats above running water, channeled from nearby streams. You visit such a monastery and hear the soothing trickle beneath your feet as you sit on cold stone. There's no privacy again, but at least you're not hanging over a ledge. Even more surprising, some medieval cities had public latrines. Paris, for example, had a few facilities available to the public, but they were rare, and the alternative, picking a dark alley, was more common. Many folks just used the nearest corner, bridge, or shrub. You've never looked at a bush with such suspicion. By the 14th century, there's more focus on managing waste, partly because of outbreaks like the Black Death. Some towns hire gong farmers. People paid and paid well to shovel human waste from cesspits and cart it away. You imagine the job interview. Do you mind confined spaces, strong odors, and the occasional rat bite? Great. You're hired. It's a dangerous job. By the way, cesspits could collapse. Gases could suffocate workers, and in some tragic cases, people fell in. A very permanent mistake. You visit a larger city and find yourself walking past the House of Easement, a communal toilet suspended over the River Thames. It's functional, if not exactly poetic. Waste falls straight into the river, which, let's pause here, is also where people fish, wash, and sometimes drink. Yum. It's all a bit paradoxical. Medieval Europe loved ritual washing holy water, foot washing, hand washing before meals. but never quite figured out systemic sanitation. There's an awkward elegance to it all, like someone wearing a velvet cape. While walking barefoot through a pigsty, you drift through a marketplace where someone sells sweet-smelling herbs and posies used by many to mask the stink of daily life. A perfumed handkerchief is more essential than socks. Toilet paper, don't be silly. Leaves, moss, hay, or scraps of cloth did the job. If anything did it all, despite the grime, you begin to feel a strange affection for this gritty, chaotic world. People found ways to adapt, even flourish. They sang, feasted, and somehow kept hope alive, even if they occasionally slipped on something that wasn't mud. You sit beside a small stream outside town and watch someone fill a bucket with water that, let's be honest, isn't exactly clear. A cow wanders by, unconcerned. Children splash nearby. This was their world imperfect, smelly, and often dangerous, but profoundly human. The stars begin to emerge again, glinting down on stone walls, crooked chimneys, and countless chamber pots. The night is quiet, but beneath it all, you know that even here, in a time of nights and plagues and unwashed feet, someone somewhere is whispering, "Guardy Lou," and someone else is definitely not ducking fast enough. You stir to the sharp smell of coal smoke and the rhythmic clank of metal on metal. Welcome to the Industrial Revolution, where steam powers cities, chimneys paint the sky black, and toilets are beginning to evolve past gravity and luck. You step out onto a cobbled street in 19th century London, and the fog hits you like a wet sock. This isn't quaint, romantic, Dickensian London. It's the gritty one, the one with overcrowded tenements, children working in match factories, and sewers that are very much not underground yet. And the smell, a thick, greasy blend of coal soot, horse droppings, and raw sewage. It's charming. If your nose is completely numb, you duck into a narrow alley and watch as a maid tosses a bucket of brown water onto the street. A second later, a man down the way does the same. The liquid runs into a shallow gutter that, you realize, leads nowhere helpful. You've landed in one of the greatest ironies of modern progress. Cities getting bigger and more powerful, while their toilets lag painfully behind. In this era, the chamber pot still reigns supreme. Every night, thousands of Londoners squat, sigh, and hope the pot doesn't overflow. In the morning, night soil, men. Yes, actual job title. Collect the waste and haul it away, usually by cart, usually while trying not to breathe. It's not glamorous, but it paid. Sometimes well, but sometimes not well enough to make up for the, let's call them, occupational hazards. You follow one such night. Soil man, down a back lane. He stops at a cesspit, essentially a big underground hole behind a tenement, and begins the grim process of emptying it. It's slow, heavy work, and you can practically feel the methane in the air. And, well, You wouldn't have to worry about finishing your shift. But something's changing. Behind all this mess, a revolution is brewing. Not just of steam and gears, but of sanitation. Enter Sir John Harrington. Okay, technically, he showed up earlier in 1596. But his invention matters now more than ever. He designed a flushing toilet centuries before it caught on. It had a water cistern and a valve system to flush waste. A real innovation. Unfortunately, it was installed for Queen Elizabeth I, who apparently wasn't thrilled by the loud splash. Royals, it seems, prefer their thrones quiet. Fast forward to the 1800s, and another name emerges. Head Thomas Crapper. Yes, that's his real name. And yes, he helped popularize the flush toilet. Though he didn't invent it, Crapper improved the design, made it more reliable, and marketed it like a modern-day tech startup. His name became so synonymous with the product that soldiers in World War I saw Crapper embossed on toilet tanks and assumed it was slang. And now you know why we say it. You step into a middle-class home, one of the lucky ones. There's a water closet, a small room with a wooden toilet seat, a cistern mounted high above, and a long chain to pull. You try it. The water whooshes down dramatically. It's oddly satisfying, modern even, but this is still a luxury. For most people, this was as rare as owning 2 socks that match. Historians still argue whether flushing toilets genuinely improved urban sanitation immediately, or whether they actually made things worse at first. Why? Because the sewage system wasn't ready. Cities like London flushed waste into pipes that led surprise straight into the Thames. That's right. Your shiny new flush toilet sent everything directly into your future drinking water. This leads to the infamous Great Stink of 1858. The Thames, thick with waste and baking in a hot summer sun, stank so horrifically that Parliament literally doused its curtains in lime to endure the smell. Debates stopped mid-sentence. Breathing was optional. London's own river turned against it. Enter Joseph Bazalgette, a true hero of public sanitation. He designed a new sewer system for London. Massive brick tunnels, miles of underground piping that finally redirected waste away from the river and into treatment areas farther downstream. It's one of the greatest feats of civil engineering in modern history. And it worked. It didn't smell pretty doing it, but it saved lives and set the standard for other cities. Meanwhile, indoor plumbing slowly spreads. Wealthy homes embrace it first, then hotels, then slowly, painfully, the rest. You visit a public toilet in Victorian London called a public convenience. It's cleanish, attended. You pay a small fee. It's separated by gender, decorated with wrought iron, and meant to serve a growing urban population that no longer accepts streets as toilets. Fringe detail. Some urinals in France during this era, known as pissoirs, were decorative cast iron structures set right out in the open. You walk past one A man is whistling inside. There's no door, just a low privacy screen. Civilization is a process back in the tenements. However, progress is slower. Shared toilets, often called privies, are out back, one for dozens of residents. They freeze in the winter. They're dark. They overflow. But they are, in their way, an improvement. Especially if you're lucky enough to avoid the rats. You sit down on a bench outside a soot-covered factory and take it all in. The clang of metal, the whistle of a steam engine, the dull hum of life speeding up, and beneath it all, the slow, stubborn crawl of sanitation catching up. Not glamorous, not elegant, but inching closer to something tolerable. The stars are hazy tonight, blurred by smoke, but they're there, watching over a world that's finally starting to understand. You can't build a future without managing the basics. Like toilets, you blink, and the soot-laced skyline of Victorian London fades into chrome. Neon and mid-century optimism. The world smells a little cleaner now. Mostly because someone finally figured out how to separate sewage from drinking water. Welcome to the 20th century. Warm, jazz, Tupperware, moon landings, and toilets that finally, truly flush. Like they mean it. You're in a post-war bathroom now, not a palace, not a tenement. Just a regular suburban home with floral wallpaper and that unforgettable pink tile every grandma seemed to love. The toilet is squat, heavy, porcelain, and proudly efficient. A chrome handle, a reassuring gurgle. The modern flush toilet, standardized and streamlined, has arrived. But getting here took more than just better plumbing. It took a cultural shift. Suddenly, privacy mattered more than ever. Gone were the communal latrines and backyard privies. Now, a bathroom was a personal oasis, a place to hide, think, read a comic book, or cry about taxes, depending on the decade. You open a medicine cabinet. Behind the aspirin and mothballs lies the heart of this shift. Hygiene. The 20th century was obsessed with it. Soap, detergent, chlorine bleach. Advertisements warned of toilet odors and bathroom shame. You weren't just supposed to flush. You were supposed to feel guilty if you didn't clean the bathroom twice a week. Welcome to the sparkling tyranny of modern cleanliness. The biggest change, though, was invisible. Plumbing infrastructure. Beneath your feet lies a vast network of pressurized pipes, treatment plants, and regulatory systems. Water comes in clean, leaves dirty, and gets filtered, chlorinated, and tested before heading out to a river or back to your sink. If that sounds gross, remember, it's how modern cities survive. Historians still argue whether this level of sanitation created a false sense of security with gleaming tiles and lemon-scented air fresheners. We've distanced ourselves from what actually happens after we flush. It's magic, out of sight, out of mind, and that's kind of the point. Meanwhile, the toilet industry is booming. You walk into a 1960s showroom, gleaming porcelain thrones in avocado green, harvest gold, and pastel blue. The future is fashionable. Toilet paper becomes a household staple, advertised for softness and strength. The days of leaves and hay are long gone. Somewhere, a medieval monk is weeping with joy. And yes, toilet paper has its own odd journey. In America, brands like Charmin and Scott Paper start marketing it as splinter-free. You pause. Wait, was that a problem? You try not to think too hard about what came before. You explore public restrooms, now far more common, though still plagued by cultural quirks. Some cities install pay-to-pee toilets with coin-operated doors. Others offer free access, but cut corners on maintenance and the stall gaps. A baffling design feature. You peek through one. Why are they so big? Scholars debate this with more passion than you'd expect. Some say it's for safety, others for air circulation, or just plain bad design inertia. No one's really sure. You just know you're not making eye contact. In the 1980s and 90s, globalization begins to flush its influence in. You find yourself in Tokyo, standing before a glittering toilet with more buttons than a spaceship. Welcome to the Japanese washlet, a revolution of comfort, cleanliness, and complete over-engineering. Heated seats, bidet nozzles, air drying, ambient music. One button just makes a flushing noise to mask your actual flush. It's polite and kind of brilliant. Fringe detail. Early bidet sales in the U.S. struggled because marketers couldn't figure out how to talk about them. The idea of spraying water on your rear was treated like a foreign oddity. Ads danced around the topic with awkward euphemisms. Meanwhile, in Japan, it was considered basic hospitality, cultural plumbing, you might call it. By now, you're spoiled. You sit down, press a button, and everything's warm and humming. It's easy to forget that even 50 years ago, indoor toilets weren't universal. In rural parts of the world, including parts of the Yokushuo, so outhouses still dominated. You walk through a quiet Appalachian yard and see the familiar wooden shack out back, cold in winter, buggy in summer, but built to last. Sometimes the moon cutout on the door was just ventilation. Other times, it was tradition, or maybe a bit of both. You follow a plumber for a day. He climbs under houses, replaces cracked pipes, and fixes clogs caused by things that absolutely should not be flushed. You watch as he yanks out a plastic dinosaur from a toilet in a daycare. He shrugs. Fourth one this week. It's a reminder. Toilets may be more advanced, but humans still impulsive. And behind it all, environmental awareness is creeping in. The traditional toilet uses 3 to 7 gallons per flush. Multiply that by millions of people and thousands of daily flushes, and it adds up. Enter low-flow toilets. Early models often performed poorly. Let's just say double flushing became the norm, but eventually design caught up. You test one. Not bad, efficient, quieter, and no panic flush required. Engineers begin tinkering with dual flush systems, waterless urinals, and gray water recycling. Suddenly, the humble toilet is at the center of sustainability discussions, saving the planet one pea at a time. Still, historians debate whether high-tech solutions really solve the deeper problems: access, equity, infrastructure. Billions of people around the world still lack modern toilets. Sanitation remains a dividing line between health and disease, dignity and shame. You close the lid on this chapter with a strange mix of awe and humility. For something so ordinary, so daily, the toilet is remarkably political, technological, emotional, even philosophical. It's where we're most vulnerable and most human. And as you flush one last time tonight, that swirl of water feels like more than plumbing. It's the result of centuries of trial and error, invention and embarrassment, failures, revolutions, and very determined night soil men. You stand now at a strange crossroads. The toilet is finally a global icon, but half the world still can't use one. Welcome to the toilet gap, where high-tech meets no-tech, and your porcelain throne is a luxury, not a guarantee. You're walking through a sprawling, informal settlement, narrow dirt paths, homes made of tin and tarp, kids playing barefoot in the dust, and suddenly, a sharp reminder: there are no toilets here, not proper ones. Anyway, maybe a pit latrine, shared by dozens. Maybe a plastic bucket behind a curtain. Maybe nothing at all. And when the sun sets, people hold it in. It's dangerous to go out. Assault, animals, exposure. It's not just about comfort. It's about survival. You try holding it. It's not long before you feel it. The dull ache, the rising anxiety. Welcome to the daily routine for over 3 billion people worldwide. In places like rural India, Bangladesh, parts of sub-Saharan Africa, and even some regions of the U.S. Open defecation remains a norm not by choice, but by necessity. Fields, riverbanks, beaches, anywhere, with a little privacy or not. It's about proximity, not dignity. Historians still argue whether colonial infrastructure projects helped or hurt long-term sanitation access. British engineers built some impressive sewer systems in India, for example, but mostly in cities, and mostly for colonial elites. Rural regions were left to catch up, and in many places, they still haven't. You visit a flying toilet zone in a dense, urban slum. Sounds cool, right? It's not. People defecate in plastic bags and hurl them over walls or into alleys. Flying toilets, real, widespread, awful. Yet, sometimes, it's the only option. Meanwhile, NGOs, startups, and governments are trying to flush solutions into the world. You tour one sanitation innovation lab where engineers test toilets that don't need water, power, or sewage systems. They use chemicals, or solar heat, or bacteria. Some incinerate waste into ash. Others vacuum it away, like a space station bathroom. They sound like science fiction, but they're very real and very necessary. Fringe detail. In some parts of the world, toilet tourism is a thing. People pay to use gleaming, futuristic toilets in shopping malls or luxury train stations. They post selfies. It's a status symbol. You try one, it sings, it scents, it thanks you, and you step out feeling like royalty. In South Africa, you ride with a crew delivering portable chemical toilets to townships. They clean, replace, and haul away the contents in large tanks. The workers wear gloves, masks, and serious expressions. It's not glamorous work, but it's vital. These toilets are lined up behind shacks, shared by dozens. It's far from perfect, but it's better than a bag in the dark. And here comes another reality check. Even in developed nations, sanitation inequity thrives. In parts of rural Alabama, entire communities rely on septic tanks that don't function. Or worse, they discharge raw waste into backyards. Locals call them straight pipes. During floods, the waste comes back up. You don't want to be there when it happens, but someone always is. You scroll through an interactive map of the USA, showing counties with inadequate wastewater infrastructure. It's more than you expect. Appalachian regions, native reservations, farm worker communities. The toilet gap isn't over there. It's here too. You flush, someone else digs a pit. Meanwhile, you sit down with people who've never used a flush toilet. Elders in rural Nepal, women in Kenya, children in refugee camps. Their stories echo embarrassment, illness, missed school, limited mobility. Toilets aren't just hardware. They're freedom. One woman tells you how she missed school every month during her period because her school had no toilet. I used to walk home an hour just to go, she says. You imagine doing that in the middle of algebra, or winter, or stomach flu. Toilets are about equality. 2. Back in the world of innovation, people are getting creative. A team in India builds bio-toilets, using bacteria to break down waste into odorless water. Another group in the USA designs composting toilets that look like designer furniture. A Swedish startup installs smart toilets in remote clinics to monitor health conditions based on waste samples. Yep, poop diagnostics. The future is weird, and yet the challenge isn't just building better toilets. It's convincing people to use them. Cultural stigma, fear, habit, and mistrust all play a role. In some places, indoor defecation is taboo. In others, shared toilets are avoided because of superstition or fear of witchcraft. You talk to a village elder who tells you, "Our ancestors used the fields. Why should we build a house of waste?" Historians still argue whether international aid projects fail because they ignore these cultural dimensions. Toilets are installed, sure, but unused, or poorly maintained, or locked behind bureaucratic nonsense. It turns out you can't just drop a latrine and walk away. Toilets, like trust, need care. You finally sit inside a humble structure in rural Cambodia. It's just a concrete floor, a hole, and a bucket of water, but the door locks. The floor is clean. You can sit in peace. That's not just sanitation. It's dignity. You exhale, long and slow. For something so simple, the modern toilet is a lifeline, a lever of equity, and if we're honest, a minor miracle of engineering. But it's not a solved problem, not even close. You look down into the darkness of that squat toilet. You see history reflected back. Who has access, who doesn't, and what it says about all of us. It's not glamorous. It doesn't sing or spray or light up, but it's enough. And for now, that's everything. You're standing on the edge of something unexpected, a tech revolution. In your toilet. You didn't ask for this. No one really did. But here it is, anyway. Flush in the middle of the 21st century, where everything from your refrigerator to your toilet wants to be smart. Your bathroom greets you with a soft glow. The lid opens. The seat is warm. A gentle stream of water appears. Perfect pressure, perfect temperature. You sigh. Is this pampering or surveillance? You can't be sure. Let's step back. The digital toilet era begins quietly. In Japan, again naturally. Already the pioneers of washlets and bidets, they double down on innovation. Voice activation, pressure sensors, built-in deodorizers, and noise-canceling tech. Some toilets even play forest sounds, so no one hears your business. You raise an eyebrow. Can a toilet gaslight you into thinking you're not using it? Apparently, yes. Fringe detail. One high-end Japanese model features a urine analyzer that sends results to your smartphone. Sugar levels, hydration, infection markers. You're one flush away from a medical checkup. No copay, no awkward paper gown. Historians still argue whether this data-centric approach to sanitation is the future or just another privacy headache. Because yes, your toilet can collect a lot of data. Who flushed, how often, how long you sat, even what you left behind. In granular, terrifying detail, you visit a trade expo, booth after booth, of gleaming white thrones with touchscreens, Bluetooth connectivity, and customizable ambient lighting. You can set your toilet to romantic mode if that's your vibe. One manufacturer claims their seat warmer can remember your favorite temperature to the decimal. You feel deeply unprepared for this level of intimacy with a household fixture. But this isn't just luxury. There are real benefits. Toilets that self-clean with UV light. Toilets that reduce water waste by adjusting flush strength based on sensor data. Some even run on solar panels, using microcomputers to manage usage in off-grid areas. Innovation, meat sanitation. You test a model designed for hospitals. It scans waste for blood, glucose, and infection signs. Doctors receive alerts. Patients are monitored passively. It sounds dystopian, but also brilliant, especially in elder care, where early detection saves lives. There's a growing movement called toileting technology. And no, you're not making that up. You attend a conference where researchers present papers on digital flush latency. AI-driven bidet pathing, yes, really? And the ethics of biometric stool recognition. You suppress a laugh. Everyone else takes it very seriously. At home, smart toilets link with apps that track your hydration and fiber intake. You get push notifications. You may be dehydrated. Increase vegetable consumption. Time since last bowel movement, 43 hours. Your toilet knows, and it's judging you. You scroll your feed. An influencer posts a bathroom tour. Their toilet retails for $15. It has speakers, mood lighting, a built-in essential oil diffuser. You look at your own modest setup. Suddenly, it feels like a chiseled rock and a stick. But this tech wave isn't just about comfort. It's also about accessibility. You visit a rehab center where smart toilets assist people with mobility impairments, adjustable height, auto transfer systems, voice-activated flushing, even AI that tracks movement patterns to alert caregivers about fall risk. This is the beautiful side of innovation. Dignity restored. Still, not everyone's thrilled. Environmentalists worry these toilets are power-hungry and resource-intensive. Privacy advocates raise alarms about toilet surveillance. You read a think piece titled, "Does Your Toilet Know Too Much?" and feel a twinge of dread. Historians still argue whether smart toilets reflect human progress or just tech industry overreach. One camp sees liberation through automation. Another sees golden-plated absurdity. Somewhere in the middle is a person just trying to go in peace. Let's get real. Some features are wildly unnecessary. You try a model with a remote-controlled flush melody feature. It plays Vivaldi. Why? No idea. Another model mists the air with scent when you sit. Lavender if you're sad. Citrus if you're tense. You shift uncomfortably. It's too much. But just like everything else, the market stratifies. You get mass market models that simply use less water and clean themselves better. You get ultra-luxury ones that sync with your smartwatch and tell you how stressed your colon is. It's a spectrum. You visit a startup that builds toilets for space. That's right, orbital toilets. No water, no gravity, just careful suction and airflow. You strap in and try a prototype. You immediately regret it, but it does work. Astronauts have no margin for error. A fringe detail from history resurfaces. In the 1960s, the Soviets tried to invent a urine-to-vodka conversion system for long missions. It failed spectacularly, but the dream lingers. You smile. Human ingenuity knows no shame. Back on Earth, you tour a high-rise in Singapore. Every apartment has a gray water recycling toilet. It takes water from your shower or sink and filters it for flushing. It's a quiet revolution. Save water, save money, no compromise. And now, the final curveball. AI toilets with machine learning. You sit down and it adjusts based on your behavior. It knows your schedule. It predicts your needs. One model even detects pregnancy before you do. Another flags colorectal cancer. Warning signs. Early. And another, it greets you with a cheerful, "Welcome back. Ethan, your name is not Ethan." You quietly unplug it. Still, for all the bells and whistles, a toilet is a toilet. A place to sit, to be human. All the tech in the world doesn't change that fundamental truth. And even now, the simple, squat toilet, the humble bucket, the pit latrine, they still serve billions. So, you stand, flush, and marvel from chamber pots to AI assistants. This journey has spanned centuries and spanned continents, and somehow we still find ways to overcomplicate the most basic of bodily functions. You now find yourself staring down a gleaming porcelain bowl and wondering where exactly does it all go. You flush, a satisfying swirl, a vanishing act. But this isn't magic. It's plumbing, and it's messier than you think. Your imaginary camera follows the flush down the S-shaped trap, through twisting pipes, into the larger arterial veins of your city's sewage system. You're suddenly beneath the streets, boots sloshing through a tunnel of, well, let's call it processed humanity. Welcome to the sewer. Ancient Rome would be proud. Their sewers, especially the Cloaca Maxima, were marvels of their time. Massive, vaulted tunnels that drained the city's waste into the Tiber River. But before you romanticize ancient plumbing, know this. Most Romans didn't have private toilets. Many still used pots and tossed the contents into the street. Gardes low came much later, but the sentiment, eternal. Historians still argue whether these early sewer systems were truly designed for hygiene or just flood control. The lines blur. The Cloaca Maxima may have been more about rainwater than raw sewage. But hey, if some poop got washed away in the process, who's complaining? Back to now, modern sewer systems are among the most complex, expensive, and underappreciated networks in any city. Pipes stretch for hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles under your feet, all designed to carry what you flush, rinse, and dump away from polite society. You visit a wastewater treatment plant. It smells like a crime scene, and a chemistry lab had a baby. Giant tanks bubble with sludge. Machines separate solids from liquids. You watch as human waste becomes eventually clean water, ready to be released into rivers or reused in agriculture. The transformation is miraculous. If you don't mind the smell, fringe fact. Some cities mine their sewer sludge for metals. Yes, human waste contains trace amounts of gold, silver, even platinum, washed off skin, jewelry, industrial runoff. It's called biosolids prospecting, and it's as glamorous as it sounds. You picture a miner with a hard hat and a nose plug, pure grit. You follow the solid waste, the biosolids as they're dried, processed, and sometimes turned into fertilizer. Other times, they're incinerated or landfilled. Or, if you're in Denmark, used to generate electricity through anaerobic digestion. That's right, poop power, clean energy from your morning routine. You pause to appreciate the invisible ballet happening under your floor. The pipe gradients, the pressure, balancing, the air vents that prevent sewer gases from exploding your bathroom. Every flush is a calculated hydraulic journey. You meet a sewer diver in Mexico City. Yes, diver, full hazmat suit, breathing tank. He wades through underwater tunnels, clearing blockages. Mostly fatbergs. What's a fatberg? Oh, just congealed masses of grease, wet wipes, and other things that shouldn't be flushed, but are. They are the modern monster in the pipeline. You look one up. It's the size of a bus, found in London. Weighed 130 tons, took weeks to remove. It smelled like death and despair. You immediately promise never to flush anything weird again. Probably. You attend a class in sewer epidemiology, a growing field where scientists analyze wastewater to track disease outbreaks. It started with polio, gained traction during COVID. Now, it can even predict flu season or detect drug use trends in specific neighborhoods. Your toilet might be helping public health surveillance without your consent. Yes, but still teamwork. Historians still argue whether the rise of water-based sanitation systems was inevitable or just a Western convenience path. In regions with water scarcity, composting toilets might be more sustainable long-term. Yet cities keep building pipes, big pipes, bigger maintenance bills. You peek into an off-grid eco-village where no one flushes. They use dry toilets. Clever designs that separate solids and liquids, vent smells away, and create usable compost. At first, it feels primitive, but you notice something. No sewage smell, no water waste, just a quiet, earthy loop of give and take. A man shows you his tomato plants, fed by humanure. You politely decline his offer of salsa, but deep down, you're impressed and just a little disturbed. Meanwhile, engineers in the Netherlands are testing urine-diverting toilets in public buildings. Pee goes one way, poop another. Why? Urine contains most of the nitrogen and phosphorus, separated early. It becomes liquid fertilizer, much cleaner. You nod slowly. You're learning things you can never unlearn. Back in the treatment plant, someone hands you a sample of the final output clean, clear, odorless water, technically drinkable, they say. You hesitate, then sip. It tastes like water, which it is, but also isn't. You try not to think about its journey. You take a moment to appreciate the miracle of plumbing. Before this infrastructure, a single cholera outbreak could devastate a city. Now, one broken pipe might just inconvenience a neighborhood, mostly. But here's the kicker. This all costs money. Maintaining aging pipes, upgrading systems, treating more waste as populations grow. Many cities are drowning in debt, literally and figuratively, because they can't fund basic sewer upgrades. And when things back up, you notice. You visit a flooded neighborhood where sewage overflowed into homes after a storm, furniture ruined, carpets soaked, lives disrupted. Sanitation isn't sexy until it fails. Then it's front-page news and insurance battles. You end your tour with a final realization. The toilet is just the beginning. Behind it lies an entire underworld engineered, funded, forgotten, working non-stop to carry your problems away. You flush, the water spins, the sound fades, and the story flows on. You're in a city park on a crisp morning, watching joggers pass by, birds chirp, and suddenly you realize that shiny, convenient flush toilet you used this morning is part of a much older, surprisingly complex social contract. Yes, sanitation is politics. Sometimes messy, always fascinating. Cities have long seen toilets as tools of control. You recall stories of Paris in the 19th century, where public urinals, pissoirs, were designed not just for cleanliness, but to keep men out of the streets and women out of sight. Some urinals were even off limits to certain classes, not just plumbing, but power. Historians still argue whether public toilets were early symbols of modern citizenship or instruments of social exclusion. Were they progressive steps toward hygiene, or markers of who belonged and who didn't? You stroll into a London alley where, centuries ago, night, soil men collected human waste from chamber pots and outhouses. Their job was filthy, dangerous, and shunned. Yet their labor fueled city farming, fueling the urban poor's survival. You learn that these workers were essential to city life. Their nighttime routes were rhythms of survival. Their buckets turned into valuable fertilizer. But the city rarely thanked them. Instead, they lived with stigma, illness, and early death. Fast forward. In Victorian London, public toilets became battlegrounds of morality and modernity. Water closets in parks were segregated by gender and sometimes class. You step into a restored Victorian restroom and admire the ornate tiles, chandeliers, and ironwork. Toilet design was civic pride and control all at once. You meet an urban sociologist who explains how toilets reveal power dynamics. In the So, during segregation, colored restrooms were smaller, dirtier, and harder to find. Denied access to clean facilities, African Americans faced daily humiliations. A toilet wasn't just a toilet. It was a symbol of systemic racism. You listen to stories of women campaigning for safe, clean public toilets. In the early 20th century, suffragists argued for sanitary facilities so women could participate fully in public life work, shopping, protests without fear, toilets, and votes, it turns out, were oddly connected. Fringe fact. In 19th century America, some cities banned public urinals, calling them immoral. Others installed elaborate, fragrant toilet gardens with plants to mask odors. You try to imagine what a toilet garden looked like and fail spectacularly. You visit a modern-day community center where activists fight for toilet justice. They argue that toilets are basic human rights. Without them, people face harassment, health risks, and exclusion from education and work. Sanitation, access isn't just infrastructure, it's social inclusion. In India, the Swachh Bharat mission aimed to eradicate open defecation by building millions of toilets. You watch footage of families celebrating their first indoor toilets, dances in the streets, tears of relief. Yet, as you saw earlier, usage isn't guaranteed. Deep cultural habits and stigma persist. You think about the toilet tax in 18th century England, a fee to use public privies. Only the wealthy could afford it, pushing the poor into back alleys. It's a reminder. Sanitation always costs money, and who pays shapes who suffers. You wander through a bustling Tokyo subway station and find impeccably clean public toilets free, accessible, gender inclusive, and designed with care. It's a stark contrast to other cities where public toilets are scarce or locked away. Here, it's a statement. Everyone belongs. You hear about toilet apartheid in South Africa, where decades of segregation left townships without proper sanitation. The bucket toilets were relics of oppression. Now, rebuilding involves more than plumbing. It requires healing. Historians still argue whether sanitation improvements were driven by genuine public health concerns or by elites wanting to control populations. The truth is tangled. Germ theory may have fueled reform, but fear of disease often led to racist policies and forced removals. You find yourself at a conference on sanitation and social justice. Speakers share stories of LGBTQ+ people denied safe restroom access. Transgender individuals face harassment, violence, or exclusion. Toilets become sites of both liberation and conflict. You realize toilets are often the first battlegrounds for emerging social issues. Genders, race, class, disability, and more. Their presence, absence, and design tell stories of who's included, who's excluded, and who's invisible. A fringe detail surfaces. In medieval Europe, public latrines sometimes had toilet priests to bless the act of relieving oneself. It sounds absurd, but reflects the deep connection between body, spirituality, and community. You pause, recognizing that every flush, every door lock, every stall divider carries the weight of history and power. The modern toilet is more than technology. It's a mirror reflecting society's hopes, fears, and inequalities. And so, as you finish your walk, you flush one last time, mindful that in the bowl goes not just waste, but centuries of human stories. You sink into your bathroom seat, the familiar feeling grounding you. But now, your mind drifts to a strange, quirky side of toilet history. Those wild inventions that didn't quite catch on. Some were brilliant, some, frankly, hilarious failures. Welcome to the world of toilet innovation experiments. Picture the 19th century, where inventors with too much time and too much ambition tried to solve the toilet problem in the most convoluted ways possible. You imagine contraptions involving levers, pulleys, and even steam engines. Yes, steam-powered toilets existed. You're not sure whether to admire or pity those early engineers. A fringe tidbit. There was a patent for a musical toilet that played tunes to accompany your business. You can almost hear the jaunty ragtime as you sit down. Historians still argue whether it was intended to disguise sounds or simply entertain the user. Maybe both. You read about Victorian-era attempts to use pneumatic tubes to whisk waste away, inspired by male tube systems. The idea was revolutionary waste, propelled through sealed tubes underground, eliminating smell and mess. Sounds great, right? Except it was expensive, complicated, and prone to clogs. The system was installed in only a few places before being abandoned. One inventor created a rotating toilet seat that would spin you gently to clean yourself after use. You try to imagine the logistics and the potential dizziness. Probably not a winning product. You also find a 1930s patent for a smoke toilet. Instead of flushing, it used smoke to mask odors and disinfect. The less said about that, the better. On a more practical note, you encounter the waterless toilet. An ancient concept reinvented multiple times. Early 20th century inventors pushed composting toilets as solutions for remote or drought-prone areas. Still controversial, but gaining modern eco-friendly fans. You meet an eccentric collector of toilet patents who proudly shows you a cabinet filled with hundreds of designs. Some feature foot pedals, some water jets. Others had integrated bidets decades before their mainstream arrival. In the 1950s, the Lysol toilet bowl was marketed with antiseptic chemicals that promised to sanitize the bowl with every flush. You grimace, thinking of all the chemical smells mixing with other smells. You learn about the jet flush toilet, which uses a pressurized jet of water for a noisier, faster flush. It's common now, but was revolutionary and noisy when introduced. Historians still argue whether such innovations were primarily motivated by hygiene concerns or the booming post-war consumer culture's thirst for gadgets. Likely both. You're intrigued by a 1970s prototype toilet that played recorded messages, reminding users to save water. Early environmental activism in the bathroom. You smile at the awkwardness of a toilet nagging you. On the fringe side, a Japanese company once developed a toilet that could analyze your stool and offer dietary advice via an attached screen. You wonder if this was helpful or just stressful. Either way, it foreshadowed today's smart toilets. You find a patent for a toilet time machine, not literally, but a device promising to reduce your bathroom time drastically. The patent is vague, but you imagine something like a teleportation pod. One day, maybe. Another peculiar invention was a portable toilet hat for hikers. Imagine a small seat you could unfold on your head. Comfort, portability, and fashion, not so much. You watch a documentary on Victorian earth closets that used dry earth to cover waste, controlling odor, and aiding decomposition. It was a step toward sustainable sanitation, but it never quite replaced water closets. You think about how all these inventions share a common theme: humans wanting more dignity, cleanliness, and efficiency. Sometimes they succeeded. Sometimes, well, the patent office collected dust. The best inventions didn't always look flashy. Simple trap designs to block sewer, gas, porcelain improvements, and better flushing mechanisms quietly transformed our experience. You chuckle at the absurdity, but admire the persistence. For centuries, people tinkered, tested, and sometimes flopped spectacularly to perfect the basic act of relieving oneself. So next time you sit down, you remember the steam-powered flush, the musical toilet, and the rotating seat. Not just weird footnotes, but markers of human curiosity, necessity, and sometimes pure whimsy. And in that moment, you feel oddly connected to generations of inventors who dreamed of better toilets. Even if they couldn't quite pull it off, you pull open a dusty book and dive into the cultural rituals around toilets. Because no matter how functional, they're also spaces full of stories, taboos, and quirky customs. The toilet is where biology meets culture, and the results are endlessly fascinating. In Japan, toilets come with buttons that play sounds known as Sound Princess or Otoheim to mask the natural noises of bathroom use. It's both a courtesy and a quirky cultural nod to privacy. You try to imagine politely pressing a button to cover your business sounds. Historians still argue whether these sound devices originated purely from modesty or as a practical social lubricant. You learn about the ancient Egyptian use of crocodile dung as a contraceptive pessary. Now, that's a bathroom taboo taken to a whole new level. You picture the crocodile dung in the sanitation narrative and wonder how often people accidentally stumbled across it. That story is as much a lesson in the unexpected uses of bodily waste as it is a grim hygiene warning. You travel to Indonesia, where squatting toilets dominate. You attempt to squat gracefully, but end up feeling more like a flamingo on stilts. The squatting position has long been praised by health experts for aiding natural elimination and reducing strain. You remember the debates you read about whether Western-style sitting toilets are a convenience or a health risk. In medieval Europe, chamber pots were emptied from windows onto the streets. A messy tradition that led to the creation of laws forbidding such behavior. Mad as a Hatter may be unrelated, but you wonder if those exposed to the streets' daily showers of waste had similar colorful curses. Historians still debate whether these laws were enforceable or merely aspirational. You hear about the toilet goddesses of various cultures, deities associated with sanitation, purity, and health. In Korea, the goddess Chukshun was thought to protect the household's toilet, keeping evil spirits away. You imagine praying before your porcelain throne, a practice that might sound bizarre today, but reveals the deep spiritual ties people had with cleanliness and health. In Turkey, public toilets sometimes feature ceramic bowls where users wash their hands and feet before entering, reflecting a cultural emphasis on purification. This ritual intertwines religious observance and sanitation, a mix you find surprisingly elegant. You discover that in many cultures, water is the preferred cleaning method over paper. Bidets in Europe and water sprays in Southeast Asia emphasize cleanliness with water rather than wiping. You think about your own toilet paper habits and wonder about cultural differences in hygiene practices. You're intrigued by the taboo around discussing toilets openly in many societies. Euphemisms abound. Powder room, restroom. Lusu. The ancient Greeks had a special term, diarrhea, that meant a flowing through, not just an illness, but a metaphor for excess and loss. Words shape our feelings about bodily functions. A fringe fact: in 18th century England, night soil collectors were sometimes called gong farmers, a term that makes you imagine someone wielding a giant ladle in a medieval kitchen. You appreciate the colorful language surrounding sanitation jobs, both dignifying and distancing the workers from society. You visit a Native American reservation where modern toilets arrived late, accompanied by educational programs about sanitation and health. The experience underscores how technology transfer isn't just about infrastructure, but also about cultural adaptation and respect. You observe how the design of toilets reflects cultural values, privacy levels, gender separation, and even decorations. In some Moroccan homes, tiled toilet rooms are lavishly decorated, signaling respect for this everyday space. In others, they're sparse and utilitarian. Historians still argue whether the rise of flush toilets in the West was a hygienic breakthrough or a byproduct of industrial capitalism's obsession with progress and consumerism. Perhaps both. You end your cultural journey by imagining future toilets designed with virtual reality, multisensory relaxation, or even social interaction. Features. Will they respect tradition or break taboos anew? One thing's certain: the toilet is never just a toilet. It's a stage for human culture, a blend of biology, belief, and habit, ever evolving, endlessly fascinating. You lean back and let your thoughts swirl around how toilets have impacted public health, the quiet revolution that saved millions of lives, but often goes unnoticed. Imagine standing in a filthy medieval street, the stench almost unbearable, as disease lurks invisibly in the air and water. That's where sanitation truly earns its stripes. You recall the landmark discovery of cholera's connection to contaminated water by John Snow in the mid-1800s. He mapped cases around a London water pump and insisted, despite widespread skepticism, that clean water, and by extension, proper sewage disposal, was vital. It's a classic example of the birth of epidemiology. Historians still argue whether Snow's work alone spurred the sanitary revolution, or if it was a gradual accumulation of knowledge mixed with social pressure. Either way, his legacy flushes through modern public health. The introduction of modern sewage systems, pipes, treatment plants, and underground networks dramatically reduced outbreaks of deadly diseases like typhoid and dysentery. Suddenly, human waste no longer flowed unchecked into drinking water or streets. You imagine the monumental labor required to build these systems, often done by workers living in poor conditions, risking their health to install pipes beneath bustling cities. They were unsung heroes of public health. A fringe detail emerges. In ancient Rome, lead pipes were common for water transport. You grimace, knowing lead poisoning was a silent killer. Yet the Romans unknowingly built plumbing marvels that lasted centuries. You wander through an old London sewer tunnel, marveling at the craftsmanship of Joseph Bazalgette, who designed an extensive sewer network after the Great Stink of 1858. The foul odor from the Thames nearly shut down Parliament. This crisis was a tipping point for urban sanitation reform. You learn about the massive social implications. Better sanitation improved not only health, but also worker productivity and life expectancy. Cities grew because people were less likely to fall ill from polluted environments. Still, sanitation improvements were uneven. In slums and marginalized communities, toilets and clean water remained scarce for decades. The sanitation gap reflected and reinforced social inequality. You hear about the toilet wars in 20th century America, where city planners clashed with public health advocates over funding and locations of facilities. Public toilets were controversial, sometimes seen as magnets for crime or loitering. On a more optimistic note, you discover how international organizations like UNICEF and WHO now prioritize sanitation as a key development goal. Access to toilets is recognized as essential for dignity, education, especially for girls, and health. You ponder the staggering statistic that nearly 2 billion people still lack access to safely managed sanitation today. The problem is global, complex, and deeply human. A quirky bit. Some animals use latrines too. Meerkats, for instance, defecate in specific spots to mark territory. Not unlike humans using bathrooms, it's a reminder that even in the wild, sanitation has evolutionary importance. You think about modern-day challenges: urban sprawl, climate change, and infrastructure decay threaten sanitation systems. Flooding can overwhelm sewers, spreading disease anew. Historians still argue whether the next public health revolution will come from technological innovation, policy changes, or grassroots activism. Likely a combination. You leave the tunnel with a renewed appreciation for the pipes beneath your feet, silent arteries of civilization. They carry away not just waste, but decades of human struggle for health, dignity, and survival. And as you flush, you feel part of that ongoing story. Grateful for the unseen systems keeping cities safe, clean, and alive. You drift into the quieter world of toilet etiquette and the evolving social norms that shape how we behave in this most private of spaces. It's a place where politeness, privacy, and unwritten rules collide, often in the most surprising ways. Imagine entering a public restroom anywhere in the world. You immediately sense the invisible choreography. Who chooses which stall? Who waits? Who lingers? Social scientists study these patterns, revealing how toilets are microcosms of society's unspoken rules. In Japan, for example, it's common courtesy to clean the toilet seat before and after use. An act of respect and care. You're tempted to adopt this habit, but worry you'd be met with confused looks back home. Historians still argue whether such etiquette emerged primarily from religious purity codes or practical hygiene, likely both, intertwined over centuries. You recall how in Victorian England, public toilets often had attendants whose job was not just cleanliness, but enforcing decorum. They sometimes even policed conversations and behavior, making restrooms extensions of social control. You learn about toilet queue culture, which varies dramatically. In some places, cutting in line is an unthinkable offense. In others, queues might be more relaxed, with people chatting as if in a social club, a fringe fact. During the 19th century, some American water closets were designed with chairs inside, encouraging long stays essentially. Early bathroom lounges. You imagine people reading newspapers and sipping tea mid-business. You're fascinated by the taboo around discussing bowel movements openly. How many cultures rely on euphemisms, silence, or humor to handle the topic. Yet humor seems universal. Jokes about toilets appear in every language and era. In the modern era, gender-neutral restrooms have become a flashpoint of debate and progress. You hear stories of schools and workplaces redesigning facilities to be inclusive, but also of backlash and confusion. You discover that even the design of toilet paper holders carries etiquette. Over or under, the debate rages on. You quietly side with over, noting it's the preferred method in most surveys. You find that hand-washing rituals vary too. Some cultures use soap and water. Others rely on sanitizer or air dryers. The COVID-19 pandemic intensified awareness of these small but crucial habits. Historians still argue about the origins of toilet humor. Was it a coping mechanism for dealing with taboo topics, or just childish silliness? Either way, it's enduring. You visit a restroom art exhibit showcasing graffiti. From crude jokes to profound messages, it's a raw form of anonymous communication, a secret language shared by millions. You reflect on how toilets serve as both sanctuaries and public spaces, places where you're alone but surrounded by societal expectations. Then there's the delicate topic of accessibility. You read about activists fighting for better designed restrooms for people with disabilities, arguing that inclusive toilets are basic human rights. The fight is ongoing, but gaining ground. You chuckle over a report of toilet Olympics held by quirky communities, where participants race to clean or assemble toilets. Odd, but somehow fitting in this world of innovation and humor. As you wash your hands, you think about how these small rituals and rules shape your daily experience, connecting you to strangers across time and place. The toilet is more than a utility. It's a social stage where politeness, power, and privacy dance in quiet tension. And as you leave, you carry these insights with a newfound respect for the etiquette that makes this necessary act feel a little less awkward. You settle into the final layers of toilet history, tracing the modern era's innovations and the future's tantalizing possibilities. It's a world where technology, ecology, and culture converge on this most intimate stage. Consider the smart toilet, a device that can analyze your health by examining waste, monitor hydration, and even adjust temperature and pressure for comfort. You imagine your toilet gently whispering health advice while you sit, turning bathroom breaks into wellness checks. Historians still argue whether smart toilets will become healthcare essentials or privacy nightmares. Probably both. You learn about the rise of eco-friendly toilets, water-saving models, composting units, and even toilets that convert waste into energy. These designs respond to global concerns, shrinking water supplies, pollution, and climate change. One quirky tidbit: some futuristic toilets incorporate music, aromatherapy, or ambient lighting to transform the bathroom into a spa-like retreat. You try to picture the ultimate toilet meditation experience. You think about space toilets aboard the International Space Station, where microgravity requires sophisticated suction and waste containment systems. Designing a toilet for zero gravity might be the ultimate engineering challenge. You discover efforts to develop sanitation solutions for refugee camps and impoverished regions, portable, low-cost toilets that promote hygiene and dignity in difficult conditions. These inventions carry a vital social mission. A fringe fact is the toilet robot prototype that cleans itself automatically, reducing human labor and exposure to germs. It's part of a broader trend toward automation in home care. You reflect on the global toilet crisis, that lack of access to clean, safe sanitation affects its billions, with consequences for health, education, and equality. International campaigns like World Toilet Day spotlight this issue, blending humor and urgency. You marvel at how toilet design now integrates aesthetics, ergonomics, and technology, with designers collaborating across disciplines. The humble toilet is no longer just functional. It's a statement of lifestyle and values. You recall the ancient roots beneath these advances: the clay pipes, the Roman baths, the medieval chamber pots, all ancestors to today's sleek fixtures. You imagine a future where toilets might recycle all water, neutralize pathogens instantly, or even contribute to urban farming by converting waste into fertilizer on site. Historians still debate whether the next big leap in sanitation will come from high-tech innovation, behavioral change, or a combination of both. You smile, thinking how, despite all the gadgets and eco-solutions, the toilet remains fundamentally a place where nature calls and humans answer with grace, humor, and a touch of engineering wizardry. So, as you settle back in your chair, you appreciate that the modern toilet is the product of millennia of invention, culture, struggle, and imagination, a silent hero of everyday life. And with that comforting thought, you're ready to drift off, knowing that somewhere, right now, Someone is perfecting the next great toilet breakthrough. You've traveled far tonight, through centuries of pipes, privies, and peculiar inventions, tracing the quiet revolution of the modern toilet. Now, let's slow down and soften, letting the gentle rhythm of this journey lull you toward rest. Imagine the warm, steady sound of water, a subtle, soothing rush, like a small stream just beyond your window. The feeling of sitting comfortably, your body relaxed and supported, safe in this simple moment. The faint scent of clean porcelain, a quiet reminder of human care and ingenuity. Your thoughts drift, light and slow, touching on the distant past, the ancient baths and latrines where strangers once shared stories, the clever minds who designed sewers to carry away more than just waste their efforts, flowing into your present. There's a hum of connection, invisible but real, breathing soft and easy. You sense the shared human experience woven through every flush and every habit, the laughter, the taboos, the innovations, all gentle threads in a tapestry of daily life. Even the quirks, the odd inventions, carry a kind of charm, reminding you how creativity can bloom in the most unexpected places. You let the story fade, like a distant melody, leaving space for quiet reflection. The world outside your door feels a little calmer, a little cleaner, and you carry with you a small gratitude for the unnoticed miracles beneath your feet, the humble throne you visit each day. Now, your eyelids grow heavy. The past whispers softly. The present feels peaceful, and the future holds quiet promise. Rest well, knowing that wherever you are, this story continues beneath cities, across cultures, in every flush and every sigh. Good night.